call the March 16th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting to order. And I would like to ask Commissioner Howie to do the invocation, so please rise.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking you for guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States
States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Howie and Commissioner Locke. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Leyland, Commissioner Lawrence,
Here.
Commissioner Locke,
Here.
Commissioner Chair Jones,
Here.
Commissioner Howie,
Here.
Commissioner Barrera,
Here.
Commissioner Marquetti,
Here.
and Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any public comment? If you have public comment, please come up and we'll give you 3 minutes.
I have a handout for everyone, not that you need to look at it right now, but you may, hopefully you'll want to take some action with it after it's done today. Not
You're
good.
good, sir. Yeah, you're good. Got it.
My name's Roger Boyer. I'm resident of Cass County. I live near Vandalia in Porter Township. And I would like to call your attention to an issue that is not new, but it is back ever so present. This bill, 4156, it's a House bill, if passed, will negate every Michigan vote for President of the United States that does not align with the popular vote in California and New York. There's a pact that has been created by, right now, 15 states, and they want Michigan to join. This was considered a year ago, and the Republican-led legislature defeated it. They wouldn't even pass it out of committee. But now it is in committee and it's being considered. If you've ever heard of the word disenfranchisement, this is it. Because what it means is that unless you, and I don't mean to be partisan, but there's no way around it in this situation, unless you vote the way that New York and California vote, which is almost always Democratic, your vote for president will not count. Because what they'll do, they'll commit all our electoral votes to whatever the popular vote in those 15 states are. And they didn't choose these 15 states accidentally. They figured out what to do. 4156 has been referred to Committee on Elections. Penelope Tsergnoglu, very difficult name to pronounce, from District 75 is the chairman of that committee. The bill itself was issued by, I don't have her name down here, but one of the, Carrie Renigans from District 47 near Jackson. She introduced it to the House along with, I think, 35 others, and it's just sailing right into committee, and I'm afraid that it's likely to pass. But hopefully with pressure from enough people, because I'm sure there's Democrats that recognize that this is, this can come back to bite them too. So I realize that you as a body, county commission, cannot pass resolutions, can't even really take the time to comment on every bill that comes up in Lansing. I understand that, I appreciate that. But this one is a little different. It's very much, in my mind, very much like the Second Amendment thing that you did 2 weeks ago. If we lose the Electoral College, or our right to literally vote for the president, we've lost a gigantic freedom. And I'm hoping you will consider this, look at the bill, talk to your constituents, see what they say, and I hope you consider passing a resolution condemning what the Michigan House and probably the Michigan Senate is likely to do on this. So,
That's time, sir.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Now, excuse me, I'd like to call for additions or deletions to the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to amend the agenda by adding under new business subsection E, which is a resolution approving participation in settlements and approval of MSSA, and a subsection F, which is an approval of the security awareness training and testing policy.
Support.
Do we have a second?
That was me. I supported it.
Okay, all right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, the motion passes. Okay, approval of the agenda. Commissioner Barea.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you. Presentation. We have property tax foreclosure review from Treasurer Anderson.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hope Anderson, Cass County Treasurer. I do want to present the property tax foreclosure review, but in light of recent developments regarding Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, I do want to give you a quick banking report. This was a wake-up call to me that there's always a risk in our exposure to the banking industry. But we have some reassurances. One, that none of our authorized depositories has any financial relationship with any of the failed banks. Also, the banking system overall is well and well capitalized and historically in strong financial shape. And thirdly, the closure of the failed banks will not have any impact on the operations of any of our authorized depositories. Our primary bank is Huntington. And just today, they shared with me a financial strength snapshot in response to those failed banks. I'd like to share that with you. I am going to talk to Huntington about options for additional protection for our funds, but knowing that we will likely have to give up yield in order to better protect our funds, but that is something that I'm going to explore. But rest assured, safety is always our number one. Our PA 20 doesn't even allow us to not be safe with government funds. So we don't have that concern. The only concern is that it's a bank, and there are risks that have been exposed. So I will continue to monitor the situation. If anyone has any questions, please ask.
Yes, ma'am. Me and you talked, and I know the answer, but if you could share it with the group on if all of our assets for the county, for us to spread that to be completely safe, how many banks would that take?
We have 6 approved depositories right now. We'd have to do, closer to 100.
Right. Right. So there's no way.
No way. I mean,
And
the
a full-time person to move around money.
Right.
At a minimum.
There's no way.
There is absolutely not.
Right. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Any other questions concerning the banking? Then I will move on to the property tax foreclosure updates. As most of you remember, 2 years ago, the General Property Tax Act was amended in response to the Michigan Supreme Court's decision in Raffaelli versus Oakland County. In Raffaelli, the court determined that parties with an interest in tax foreclosed real property retain a right under the Michigan Constitution to proceeds realized at auction which exceeds the taxes, interest, penalties, and fees and other costs owed on that property. Raffaelli marked a drastic change in Michigan law with respect to real property tax foreclosures, and it rendered unconstitutional parts of the General Property Tax Act, which had previously allowed the foreclosing government unit to retain those remaining proceeds. There are 2 recent developments that I want to provide information to you on. One is that the United States Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case of a 94-year-old widow whose home were foreclosed for $2,300 in property taxes. It sold for $40,000 in a tax auction, and the county kept the proceeds. Although this case stems from a property tax dispute in Hennepin County, Minnesota, it could have and probably will have nationwide implications for real estate and the Bill of Rights. In case you don't know, I thought this was interesting, and Carol probably knows, Judge Beeler rather, that our United States Supreme Court here receives 5,000 to 7,000 requests for a case each year. And of those cases, 1.1% are accepted, and this was one of them. So, pay attention to the news. It's going to be out there. We've got the Michigan Association of County Treasurers. We're sending our whole board of directors to Washington, D.C. for this. The questions that will be presented are, does taking and selling a home to satisfy a debt to the government and keeping the surplus value as a windfall violate the Fifth Amendment's takings clause? The other question that's being presented, is the forfeiture of property worth far more than needed to satisfy a debt, a fine within the meaning of the Eighth Amendment? Now, remember though, our law was the same as Minnesota's before we changed it in 2021. So we are a couple years ahead. So we're in a pretty good position, thankfully, because we did change those. We have a pathway for former owners to claim their excess proceeds. Nonetheless, we must keep an eye on this case, and it will be very interesting to see what happens. Interesting enough, Cass County has our own 94-year-old widow story, and I've shared it with commissioners who've been here before. One year, every year I go out and visit parcels that are high risk of foreclosure, and I make sure they understand that foreclosure is final and you lose your home forever. This particular widow in Penn Township, 94 years old, and she said, honey, I don't know anything about them taxes. My husband always took care of it. She said, I pay the mortgage every month. So I said, can I see your mortgage paperwork? And sure enough, her taxes were escrowed. And they hadn't paid her taxes for 3 years. She was 30 days from losing her home. She, of course, on her fixed income, qualified for a hardship extension from the county. So that put us on hold from foreclosing. In the meantime, some phone calls were made, and that mortgage company paid her 3 years of taxes. And she stayed in her home. And since then, she's qualified for the state hardship or poverty exemption from the township. She's never been behind on her taxes since. So we have our own successful 94-year-old widow story in Cass County. And that represents, honestly, what we do in Cass County. We work hard to prevent foreclosures. So I want to reassure you that story is going to pull at everybody's heartstrings, and it rightly should, but we do everything we can to prevent foreclosures in our county. The other thing I wanted to give, the other update was regarding excess proceeds from parcels that foreclosed before the General Property Tax Act amendments. So we're looking at 7 years, right? 2013 through 2020, all these years before the General Property Tax Act changed. In December of 2022, Cass County's Board of Commissioners passed a resolution to enter into a settlement agreement that has been years in the making, as did all the counties in this Western District. It was to avoid future litigation and controversy. This is a good settlement. And it's in the best interest of the citizens of Cass County to resolve this litigation. But just yesterday, we received an update on the proposed class settlement. And a press release is in the works. I will be able to describe the proposed settlement publicly very soon. Basically, the parties who owned, inherited, or held an interest in property that was foreclosed on and sold in Cass County for non-payment of property taxes between January 1st of 2013 and December 31st, 2020 could be eligible for money from this settlement. The county administrator and our finance director and I are updated very often from Attorney Alan Vanderland's office And again, I do hope to give the public notification of that settlement agreement really soon, probably within the next couple months.
Any questions for Treasurer Anderson? Any questions? I guess I'm the chair. I'm looking at the chair. Yes, Mr. Marquetti, what question do you have?
During our board review meetings, I heard something I wasn't aware of, that the state is arbitrarily sending out letters to people asking about their principal residence. And we have one incident where a gentleman just didn't understand it, didn't ignore it, and now they're really chasing him down to pay back taxes.
Yes, we were audited pretty heavily in Cass County during last fall. And we had, let's see, between August and November, 300 principal residence exemption denials just in Cass County. And when the state sends those to me, I don't have jurisdiction over them, I just have to bill them. But the second wave, which was about 180 of them, 90% of them were for failure to respond. So I knew that that meant we'd get a lot of appeals. Well, not me, but the state of Michigan, we'd get a lot of appeals. So and we encourage them to appeal. In most cases, that it is their primary residence. But because they did not answer the questionnaire, their principal residence was taken away for up to 3 years. Again, and then when I bill them, I give them a whole outline of this is how you appeal, but you only have 35 days from when the state denied you. So get moving. And if it goes past 35 days, they can go to the Michigan Tax Tribunal and still appeal, which we're kind of helping a couple people navigate that as well. But yes, we were very heavily audited by the state of Michigan this year.
I'm surprised.
I was too. It was a lot of work. Why? I guess it was our turn. They do so many counties a year.
You sure it wasn't because of how the majority voted?
I hadn't even considered it.
Should.
Any other questions for Treasurer Anderson? Anybody? I have to say that, does someone have a question back here? Oh,
No, the question I asked was, I didn't realize that while the committee is in session, that whoever's up there speaking can take questions from people in the audience.
Only for committee of,
yeah,
maybe I shouldn't
this
ask them,
is
but-
committee of the whole, and so yes, it's allowed in committee of the whole.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Not my meeting.
No, Lynn, it's more informal than our regular meeting.
Okay,
And we want to encourage people to ask questions and have discussion, so. But I would like to comment that story that Hope told about the 94-year-old widow, that's my favorite story. I've told it many, many, many times in many places, just as an example of how hard we work to make sure that people understand what's going on in their taxes. Okay,
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Do we have any committee reports?
Yes. We're gonna go down the line or just?
Okay, I don't have the list of committees, but if you have a committee report, I would be happy to hear, we'd be happy to hear it.
I do. From my health department meeting,
Oh, okay.
we've heard last year that there was an African swine flu that was only found in Asia. And I asked them the reasoning behind why is it called that, because that was controversial 2 years ago. And the medical director, Dr. Wild, told me that there has been no reports of African swine flu nowhere in our area,
Right.
or the avian flu.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. The health department also said that our flu numbers across the board, COVID, normal flu, and any other flu, all the numbers are going down. Our county is looking healthy between Cass and Van Buren.
Cool.
My Pokagon Township, they paid their $25,000 for the Robin Grant share. And they also said that Pride Care is still in business. contrary to some of the rumors that have been going around in the county about Pride Care shutting down. Our economy is doing well in Cass County because we had 4 new homes in my township being built from the ground up, new construction. So I guess lumber prices are about back to normal. My Southwestern Michigan Community Action Agency meeting, Cass County received $7,065 out of the $10,000 requested for rental assistance payments. And anybody that needs help that's not covered by Woodlands, SMCAA, Area Agency on Aging, and a few other communities, they recommend dialing 211. That covers everything. It's like a giant database, so they recommend doing that. And then I was requested, this is not my committee or a township, but I was requested as the chair of the Board of Commissioners to encourage people to come to Penn Township as far as the elected officials, because they felt as if they were being neglected. And this is the residents, not the board, because the Diamond Lake people, Kelsey Lake people, and Donnell Lake people are very angry with the marijuana grows, and they're saying that they don't have any setbacks. They have the fences and the cameras right at their backyards. And the smell, they said the smell is so bad, there is no escaping it. And a house that was up for sale for so much money, they took a $50,000 loss because of the smell. So the rebuttal from the township was they went from 7 outdoor grows when it first was legalized down to 4, and that they don't see the market going. They say they're going to see a steady decline. So the residents want them to change their policy, and they're going to go around passing a petition around. So if you live on Donald, Kelsey, or Diamond Lake, and you're in the affected area, they're going to be passing a petition around so they can amend the ordinance, not change it, but amend it to give them some breathing room, lack of pun. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Okay. Are there any other committee reports? Any other committee reports? I would just add that Mason Township is also decided that they want to help with the Robin Grant. And I think that the number that they gave was, they have the most amount of people, was 91,000. And it's my understanding that the project is going to move forward. So that's good news for 550-some residents who do not have any broadband at this time. So.
Yeah, they approved $500 per household that was in there. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's move on to district reports. Commissioner Lawrence.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Commissioner Locke.
Carried peak, covered the pen, just Newburgh's in the beginning process of looking into developing plans and on a new town hall.
Oh, okay. Good, nice, yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Jones, do you have another?
For the district side, Pokagon Township is looking to, they started their transfer station is open, and for the public, a transfer station charges by the truckload or trailer load for garbage. And this is open to only township residents. And I've been tasked by another commissioner to go out and ask the other townships. And so far, Pokagon is the only one that has it going from March to November. And Mr. Marchetti's township, they have it once a year. Any other townships, I am not aware that they even know what it's called or what it is. So that's all I have for my district.
Thank you. Commissioner Howie.
Nothing to report at this time.
Commissioner Barrea.
Not a lot going on. So in Milton Township, I was able to attend their meeting Tuesday, February 21st. During that meeting, there was a couple of properties that were rezoned agriculture to residential. Other than that, just a couple of small things. They bought a first aid kit and contracted a service to take care of that for them. as of recently, a couple days ago, I know everyone's kind of been aware of the Gumwood project with the roundabout situation. Last I spoke with Joe Bellina, he said that the final alignment was completed and that information was passed along to the property owner and their attorney. Joe Bellina did send Commissioner Marquetti and myself an email, just reiterating some of his points on the issue. But at this point, it just seems like we're, for lack of better words, we're going around in circles and giving them the same information that we've already provided in the past. So it's not that we're trying to be non-transparent, we're just, the final alignment's complete, and I think everything's gonna be in motion very soon. Switching over to Ottawa, again, just a couple of small things. There was a walkway that they approved, them and the Village of Edwardsburg are going in together to fund that project. I believe that's in motion as well.
Yes, it is.
And I'm not sure there's much else. There was some discussion regarding ambulance and things of that nature, but I think that's being handled.
Again, Commissioner Marquetti. Okay, so Connexus met March 3rd, in person and by Zoom. Introduced were 3 new elected officials, including Ryan Leyland. Also introduced were the new Youth Solutions Chair, the Chief Marketing Officer, and the VP of Workforce Development. And I met with the Vice President of Workforce Development and Todd Gustafson and Jennifer DeMond. And they are very interested in, well, actually moving out of the county building. They'd like to have 3 offices. They have only 2 desks here, so they'd like to get someplace where they have more desks and where they have more visibility. But they also have hired someone who is going to do training, and they would like to have these workshops, for example, for resumes, how to interview, how to find a job, different aspects of looking for a job. And then another thing they would like to have is they would like to have a workforce, a work fair. But they need, they said that some of the work fairs that they've had, job fairs, they've had a dozen or more employers and didn't end up with a lot of people searching for a job. So they would like us to help, when they do have one, they would like us to help to get the word out. So, and that was a pretty interesting meeting, by the way. A resolution was passed supporting Lake Michigan College's millage request, and also passed was an amendment to the Workforce Development Board bylaws allowing a proxy vote if the board member is not present. They had a clean audit, and they have the auditors do extra because they receive federal funds. The Human Resources Director gave a presentation on recent developments in their department. Going Pro, the training fund competition for businesses in the Tri-County area, will have a second cycle of grants, and once that comes up, I will, I'll let you know when that is. Of the 66 companies that just got the grants, 55 received grants, and that included CHT, Hydro, the Council on Aging, and Creative Foam and Dowagiac. Jobs for Michigan Graduates funding is included in the governor's budget, and in the past, we've always had to go up and beg for it, but this year she put it in the budget. So. Human Services Coordinating Council met March 8th, and we heard a presentation from Amy Malsbury of Children's Special Healthcare Services, and that is a part of the VBCAS Health Department. This is a service that provides funding and help for families when a child has a chronic and severe health problem. They will assist with payments and treatments from providers. It is primarily a Michigan program, but under certain circumstances, they will help if the providers are in Indiana. Great Start has provided a resource guide for just about any situation that has to do with finding help. It can be medical, dental, childcare, mental health. All of the service agencies and organizations like food pantries are included. And Administrator Newton, I think I sent you that, did I send you that resource guide?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have Jackie, when she gets back from vacation, print off a number of copies, and we'll leave them in the office, and so that if you know someone who needs a certain kind of help, because there's everything in this guide. We'll have copies in the administration office so that you can take a look. And besides going to Mason, I went to Ottawa, and their cleanup is April 29th, 2023, and it's from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon.
9 to 3.
Oh, okay, 9 to 3. Oh, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Any questions? All right, Commissioner Lee, it's all yours.
So I have a unique run for my townships. Calvin and Porter are both at 6 p.m. at the same time on the same date, and Mason is at 7 p.m. on the same day. So I do a nice run. So Calvin had talked about the issue with the ambulance services, and then they mentioned that their response time of 12 minutes was at 91%. So 91% of the responses were 12 minutes or less. They mentioned that ambulance facility
Back here.
that they had lost a contract in Kalamazoo, so they were gonna be moving ambulances down here. So hopefully we would see an increase in response time. So,
Okay.
one person's loss is another person's gain. It sounds like a benefit for us there. Porter Township has someone who bought property and would like to put in his own private drag track. So that's known, there are no current noise ordinances in Porter, but there is a potential for that to come. So if you have any interest or thoughts one way or the other, and you live in Porter Township, you might want to go there and have an opinion or make your thoughts known. And then Mason Township, they approved that, and then they're also putting in that pickleball court and a walkway, and I know many, many people in Mason Township are excited for that.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving along, the administrator's report.
Yes, so my report is in the packet, and I guess one thing I'll touch on, you might notice it's a little different than it has been in
Yes,
the
it
last couple of
is.
years. So, with the move to committee of the whole, our plan has been that we're gonna focus on kind of giving reports during committee of the whole and then focusing on business during the regular meetings. So with that idea, my thought was that I would give a more detailed report during the committee of the whole. So I won't touch on the whole thing, of course, but I'll give a few highlights. It's obviously more narrative based now, but we're still working through the medical care facility IT partnership. We had a meeting with them last month, went to their board meeting, and they approved purchase of additional equipment, so we're getting closer. Opioid settlement, the county has received approximately $247,000 from the settlement for this year. It's actually $1.8 million over the next 18 years, I think, overall. I think we're gonna have to look at some point kind of establishing some sort of committee comprised of commissioners and county partners and community stakeholders as to what to do. I know Chair Jones was talking about looking at setting that up in the near future, so I'm excited to see that come underway. And then, of course, we've got another opioid settlement item on the agenda to talk about a little later. Courthouse, I guess one update I'll give is that we had the SHPO review that was in process for the USDA grant. That's actually been fully submitted, and SHPO is doing their thing right now, so we're hoping that within the next month or so, that process will be completed and we'll hear back and can start to move forward with the rest of the grant. I think that's about all I'll touch. Oh, and the last thing I guess I'll highlight here is with the standing committees, we did add a new item on the website under, if you go to the menu and go to Board of Commissioners and Committees, you'll see a listing of all the standing committees there. It has a purpose of what each of the committee does, all the members of the committee, and then a meeting schedule that's listed there too. So we're trying to get that out there and try to make that more public for everybody. So we're excited to have that ready to go also. And of course, if anybody has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Administrator Newton?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So for the public's knowledge, that tab that shows all of our standing meetings and times and all that, that means that we don't have to put out a public notice for every one of those meetings, or?
Yeah, essentially, if you have a special, if you have a regular meeting schedule, once you adopt that regular schedule, that will continue. And we're gonna try to make sure that we add that with our calendar on the main website as well, so that you'll see that's right there. The meeting schedule's been adopted. As long as that's posted, you're fine. If you have a committee that meets, I'd say at the call of the chair or something like that, then of course in those instances you have to post it every time
36
you meet.
hours early.
But
Yeah.
if you have a committee where you establish a regular meeting schedule, you only have to post the regular schedule.
That's it.
The first meeting of the year and then a regular schedule after that.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions for Administrator Newton? Anybody? Okay, well then let's move on to the finance report. It's in our packets.
It is, and it's in the packets. I did want to know a few things. So I had spoke previously, we do have 3 component units that go into our audit with our audit. Those being Woodlands Medical Care Facility
Yep.
and the Road Commission. I have reported that things were going well this year and very smoothly. They are still waiting on the Road Commission's OPEB valuation. And I was told that things will be very, very close this year, which is making me a little bit nervous. It is due to the state by 3/31. There's absolutely not much I can do. I do have one outstanding item, which is our ARPA contract. The one I have was later on revised, and I am unable to contact Treasury. I have tried many times. I actually have gotten in contact with them. They just can't help you. They put in a ticket just like you do an email. So I have about 8 tickets into Treasury just to get our grant contract, but mostly what we are truly waiting on is the Road Commission's OPEB valuation so that they can finish up our audit.
Thank you, Jennifer. Does anyone have any questions for our finance director? Okay, thank you. So we will move on to county partners.
I'm back.
Good.
Good evening, Commissioners. Last meeting, I was at the Berrien County Conservation District annual meeting, so I missed the fun and excitement here, but I wanted to provide an update. Even though it's a committee of the whole, we've got a lot going on and a lot benefiting the community. So first and foremost, our annual tree and plant sale is live. Thanks to the county for helping us with the mailing. I brought catalogs if anyone needs one. They're also posted on our website with a printable order form. Orders due by April 10th, with pickups happening the 27th through 29th down at the COA Orbit building. Please feel free to share our pinned Facebook post announcing the sale in your groups, friends, neighbors, or anyone else interested in low-cost native trees, plant shrubs, berries, fruit trees. There are also some really nice shoreline plants. This is our biggest fundraiser, and so it's critical that we sell all 9,000 trees we're trying to get in the ground here in Cass County. We're putting a contractors meetup on shoreline stabilization together Wednesday, March 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. at Dussel's. This informal Q&A will include discussion on the SCSC permit program we administer for the county. Invasive species will be addressed by the South by Southwest Corner SISMA. Eagles Water Resources Division will be sharing information, and our gracious host Dussel's will be sharing info on erosion control products, recommended native plant species, and the benefits of geocell permeable pavers. Moving on, as of this morning, we're now selling Parks vehicle passes for the Parks and Rec Department. Cash or check only, 15 in county, $30 out of county. Since we're interacting with the public daily, and they're not, we thought this was a good opportunity to increase sales for the Parks Department. So Scott brought those over this morning, and we've already sold one. So it's a tremendous success. Our Hikes with the Naturals program is back with 18 hikes scheduled between now and mid-October. Schedules on our Facebook page. I also have flyers. I hung one down in the lobby. For anyone interested, this is a free program with different themes and naturalists leading each hike. Most hikes are at Lawless or Russ Forest Parks. However, we're hosting one at the Ed Lowe Foundation property and one at Spirit Springs with the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. I just want to give a shout out to Corey Blivis for creating this program and thank everyone who's leading the hikes. And hopefully you guys can join us for a hike or two. Moving right along. Speaking of parks, our MEEP technician, Emily Haluda, has put together an Art in the Park series starting Wednesday, May 10th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. She even did a nice little graphic because she's younger than I am and knows how to make things that are good on the internet and have QR codes. Events are going to be at Russ Forest, Arthur Dodd Memorial Park, Dowagiac Nature Sanctuary, Crane Pond State Game Area, Spirit Springs Nature Sanctuary, and Lawless Park. Registration's $10 an event, or $50 for all 6, which will help us cover some of the cost for the art supplies. If anyone knows of a local business or organization who would like to sponsor this series, we'd love the support. It'll help us provide more supplies to those participating. And lastly, I'm under 5 minutes, I'm sure. I wanted to let you know our friends at the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy are working on acquiring LaGrange Valley Conservation property, formerly Lake LaGrange. It's approximately 425 acres, including a 110-acre high-quality intact wetland, which is adjacent to Ed Lowe Foundation's 2,000-acre Big Rock Valley. Swimlick, that's what they call themselves, so I'm just going to start using Swimlick for Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. Swimlick has been awarded an Endangered Species Act grant for the property acquisition. However, they still need to raise $250,000 to match the federal grant dollars and cover the costs of near and long-term stewardship. In addition to protecting the endangered species in the preserve, the project will help protect the coldwater stream fishery of the Dowagiac Creek, as well as a nesting pair of bald eagles. The project will not only help conserve a critical piece of nature, along with the rare species living there, but it will raise awareness and understanding of this area's rare native species and ecosystems, strengthen conservation partnerships, and help support ecotourism and nature-centered economic development, as well as the rural and agricultural history that characterizes Cass County. Conserving this land also adds to the acreage calculations for permitted water draws, which can be a benefit for agricultural uses. Public fundraising campaign will begin shortly as Swimlick plans to acquire the property this fall. Please feel free to reach out if you've got ideas on how to help them reach their fundraising goals. It's a rare opportunity to be able to conserve an environmentally important property this size, and it's right in our backyard. And I just learned the Field Museum in Chicago has a giant Lake LaGrange diorama in the on display from many, many moons ago. So we're trying to talk to them about doing something with that.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yep.
I think time is up, but thank you very
Yep,
much.
you bet.
Appreciate you coming in and helping out like that. All right, and do we have any other county partners? I'm looking around, I see a few. No? Nobody? Okay, we'll move on then. Elected officials, do we have any elected officials? That's, okay, thank you.
I would just like to say a couple things. Number one, not about my office, but I would like to comment on Hedro, who is building here in Cassopolis.
Yes.
I've attended a couple events in the last couple weeks, and they have an office here downtown, and they've had representatives, and they have issued checks and donated to so many entities in our community already before their facility is even up and running. It's incredible. So if you see them, please thank them because they are making a huge difference in our community, which is really wonderful. So grateful to have them here. And number two, I want to touch, my office is very busy, but elections, we have the biggest May election we've ever seen. All but one precinct will be open this May. And with that, the passage of Proposal 2 in November is a huge stressor for all clerks. So hug a local clerk if you see them. Be very nice to them. I can tell you we've already lost a couple of local clerks because of it, which is very unfortunate. And I can see by 2024 it's going to be a real problem. I don't think the public really knew the full implications, but the unfunded mandates that come along with this are a huge, huge, huge problem. It's going to be a problem for us here at the county, and it's going to be a huge problem for your townships. This prepaid postage is not just a stamp, it's a stamp on an envelope, and that is already in play. And so your townships are footing the bill for all of these envelopes and stamps, and I can tell you the clerks by law now have to include them, and people are not using them, so it's a huge waste, and they lose them, and they call the clerk and they need another one, and the clerk has to buy more stamps and more envelopes, and it's very frustrating. And these automatic mailings are a problem because we have so many snowbirds. So they send out mailings and the people call, no, we're back from Florida already, I need you to mail another one. So there's another mailing with another envelope and another stamp. And this is just the beginning. We don't see the full 9 days of in-person voting until 2024. That's going to affect us here at the county. So that's going to be a lot of extra staff. That's going to be 2 full weekends. So we're going to have a lot of things to look at, and it's going to be a huge, more tabulators, more machines, more people, more ballots. So we're gonna have to work on a lot of things. So I just wanted you all to be aware of what we're seeing already. Very unfortunate.
I'm not hugging the clerk because I'm scared of her husband.
Okay. High fiver.
Here.
All right. Hey. Oh! Thanks.
Any other elected officials? Anybody else? Okay, well then we'll move on. We have no unfinished business. We have new business. A, MEDC Marine Patrol Grant. So,
Want to talk about it? Want me to? I did put a resolution in there, so.
We need a hole.
that's right.
So, got some exciting news. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation has awarded Cass County a grant of $200,000 with a $20,000 match. And I'll give you a little history about what's going on with this. So last spring, Senator Kim Lasada made contact with myself and Sheriff Paul Bailey and said, I'd like to sponsor something for your counties to help law enforcement. Is there something that both of your counties could use that would be beneficial? We both said marine patrols. It's hard to get money for boats. It's hard to get money for the marine patrols. And so we proceeded to, I proceeded to write a grant for that purpose. And it was $200,000, $100,000 for Cass County and $100,000 for Berrien County. And then each county will do a 10% match of that to make the 20% total. So that was last spring. Well, it was passed during the final portion of last year's budget by the federal government, along with billions of other dollars of things going on. And then I didn't hear anything until January. I got a thing saying, please let us know or just update us with this information, just so you know it's been approved, but we need to, it has to go before the lawyers and stuff like this. Well, then just 2 weeks ago, I got notification we've been approved, and we needed to get some paperwork into them right away. And so we signed the grant. I called Sheriff Bailey and Berrien, and they're on board. So now I'm just waiting. They're going to do 50% up front. We, Cass County, are the fiduciaries for that grant, so we will be bringing in the total amount and dispersing to Berrien, and then they'll be responsible for the quarterly reports for that grant until it's complete. The good news is, it's a pretty easy one. We're looking at buying a boat for our marine patrol. Berrien County's looking to buy 2 engines, but they have this thing called Lake Michigan. So they use big engines to put on their boats and get around. So the tricky part is finding these items to be dispersed. So the grant actually runs through the end of 2024 in case supply chain were to cause that issue, but we're hoping to have it done this year. There you go.
I was going to ask you what you were going to use the grant for, but now.
So we're looking to get a new boat. Our baby boat, our youngest boat is a 2006.
Okay.
But we're looking to get one that's got more technology that'll be able to be dispatched out right away, possibly with sonar on board.
Wow.
So if we have to look for a drowning person or something, we have it dispatched immediately instead of just waiting for that to come out to the scene. And we're looking at to fulfill about $110,000 total.
Okay, good.
So we were looking at maybe doing 2 smaller boats, but then we thought one with more technology would be a better response for public safety.
Well, thank you, and thanks for applying for that. And I guess we should thank Senator Lasada too.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh,
Do we, the $10,000, does that comes out of our budget, or where does that come from?
So I don't have enough money in my marine budget.
More than likely, we'd be looking at, a budget adjustment for that, but I think it'd be difficult to argue
Difficult
against
not
doing
to,
that. I mean, we definitely
Wouldn't
need
turn
to.
it down.
So,
Yeah,
what we proposed was a resolution there to commit the funds for that, and then we'll work with the finance director to determine, what adjustment to make.
She hasn't fell out of her chair, so I'm assuming that we can, so at this point, we just, as a board, we recommend that we push it to our.
we're gonna, yes, that's what we will do. I will ask do we want to move this to the April 13th meeting? And just yes or no, or, okay, we will be
Okay.
moving this to the April, the resolution to the April
Yeah.
13th meeting. So you may as well stay there.
What's that?
You may as well stay there.
What do I do now?
Well, you got the jail lift station pump. Oh, who we got?
That's Dave, and I'll talk
Okay,
about
you
that a
gonna
little
talk
bit
about
too.
that? Okay, okay.
I just,
Sorry,
I just
Dave.
put things through it.
I'll try, Dave, and then you can jump in if I don't get it quite right.
It said jail, so
It's broken.
Yes, it's broken.
that's it.
Are we ready for that?
Yes.
I'll move on to that. Okay,
Yes.
so the lift station at the jail, we had, I think it was last year in spring, I believe, there was a pump, I think pump number 1 was replaced at that point in time. So lift stations have 2 pumps. Generally speaking, the idea there is that if one fails, you've got another one that backs up so you don't end up, having sewage backing up and causing major issues. So the first pump failed. That was subsequently replaced. This past winter, I think it was December roughly?
Yes.
Somewhere around that time, from
Yes.
early January.
I remember.
They found out that the second pump has now failed. Now, the good news is that right now at least, as long as pump number 1 is good, the lift station is still operating, it's still doing what it's supposed to do. But the downside is now you've got a single point of failure. So if that pump were to have a failure, the whole thing goes down, and we're seeing a pretty significant cost at that point. I mean, I know, I met with Village Manager LeBrow. She said that they do have, a vac truck, things like that, but you start having to do that for a facility open 24/7, you're gonna see a huge cost in a very short amount of time. So the quote ended up being, I think it was right around $19,870. I think last time it was about a similar amount, but we factored in, what was it? I think there was a few labor costs and a few other things on the part of the village to get everything squared away. It came in just over that. It was like $20,490 or something. So because we didn't originally plan for it in the budget, and because of the potential where if we get an extra hour of labor, it'd be over $19,999.99 anyway. We thought we'd bring it to you and kind of provide at least a rough overview of what's going on and seek to kind of move that to the next agenda. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's an emergency. There's nothing we can really do to not do it.
And the village did pull the bad pump to try to repair it.
Yes.
The shaft is sheared, there is no repair for it.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
I would recommend that we put this on the next agenda because in a past life of mine, I worked for the city of Corpus Christi and I was a lift pump operator and I used to repair them myself. And what's not on here is the potential environmental hazard that will cost a lot more than this right here. Because when that pump goes down, when you shut down one pump, you have to hurry up and work on it before it rises. And the sheriff ain't gonna control all the jailers because there'll be a civil uprising if he shuts off the water and keeps them from flushing their toilets. But the environmental, if that overflows, will cost us 10 times this amount right here, so I think we should move this one onto the agenda for next meeting.
I would support
It's a pretty crappy situation.
It's pretty crappy. And, well, what,
Well said.
Thank you.
well, what the public doesn't know is the pumps, they're designed really good, but places like jails, slaughterhouses, it's what goes through the pump is what breaks them.
Yeah, and I can tell you, there's the lift stations we have now, I mean, they've moved to some basket-based systems to try to catch big debris that might come through. I think the pump that they're looking to put in actually is a little bit higher quality, kind of chopper pump than was in there before, so we think it'll give us a little bit better useful life. And with both pumps being replaced, about a year apart, that should give us quite a bit of extra time now until we have to worry about it again.
Yep.
I also would like to mention that I did have a contact about this because there was a person who I just didn't know, and I didn't know the answer, that felt that we should have bought the pump in Michigan. Came from Illinois, but I let that person know that we didn't buy the pump, we just paid for it.
Yeah, that was the decision made by the village.
Sure.
They reached out to whoever they used.
Yeah.
We certainly can, next time if you'd like.
I
Try and find one local ourselves.
Sure.
I do know of a couple places.
Yeah, that would be great, yeah.
Sure.
because I know we do that, so, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we can try. I mean, I think the one challenge with it is the village does have, I think in their agreement with us, they maintain the lift station and then will kind of bill us when these things come up. And they're usually the entity that actually handles it. We just pay the cost, but I'm sure we could work with them in the future.
Thank you.
So it says in here in April 21, the pump one failed and was replaced. Do we know approximately what's the average lifespan of the pump?
The jail, I think a lot of issues are coming. It's an old jail, 30 years plus, and the jail is 24/7, 365. There's so much old equipment and fixtures out there. These pumps were that situation. They're old, they're past their use of life, and when the shaft starts getting weak enough to shear like that, that says everything. They're rode hard, all that stuff out there, and we've got a lot of expenses coming in the near future for the jail. We really do. It's to be expected.
I think they've updated those because the seals go bad first, and then once the seal goes bad, then that's when the shaft, but there's no way to tell unless you shut it off, pull it out, and then inspect it regularly.
Yeah, you can replace the seal 3-4 times, but you start to get so much shaft where
Yeah.
seal won't.
And every
seal
time you
won't.
replace that seal, you're putting wear on the shaft
Yep.
by taking it apart, putting
Sure.
it together, taking it apart, putting it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's old.
The reason I ask is
10
because it says
years
the new
maybe.
pump.
I think that
Yeah.
it's a relatively long time, I think. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
it's
I
not
think-
like you're doing this every couple of years. I mean, I think with the
No.
lift station sort of pump, I mean, you're probably talking,
15, 20
yeah,
years.
10 to 20, depending on
New wells, especially
overall
this new
usage.
design.
I'm surprised they last that long. Yeah.
So they've been replaced since the jail.
These are
was-
the
Oh,
original,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
feel
these
like.
were the originals, yeah.
Okay, all right.
32 years.
Many things.
Mm.
I just,
They
with
don't
the
know
new
what's-
one going in, you require installation of new mounting rails and pipe change, so I just wanted to know.
It's a whole new design.
Yeah,
You know, the old style isn't even available anymore, so therefore, the rail system is all new.
Yep.
It has to be updated.
Okay.
The new pump will not slide on the old rails.
gotcha.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions for the sheriff or Dave, we'll move on to resolutions of recognition. We have a resolution in appreciation of animal control. And we have a resolution in appreciation of Michigan 911 telecommunicators, as well as a resolution recognizing National Crime Victims Week. And we can, is there any discussion on any one of these resolutions?
One thing of note is that we're gonna try to time it, I know Prosecutor Fitz normally would
Yes.
have that,
Yes,
the children that come in with the artwork that they do.
victim rights, yes.
Yeah, the victim rights
And
work.
he also will have a flagpole.
And the flagpole ceremony,
Yeah,
yes, we're trying
ceremony.
to kind of time all of this so that it's all,
Together?
working together in tandem.
Well, we'll move these to the April 13th, these three resolutions. Okay, moving along. D, we have a discussion claims committee. I know that Commissioner Howie was interested, as well as Commissioner Lawrence, and let's hear what you have to say.
Okay, I know in the past they did have a claims committee, and I think it would be good, especially for the newbies, to actually go through the claims twice a month, every other week. Just so we can be familiar what is going through the process, because right now, we are approving claims that have already been paid. So it would be like if you've got a charge card. You always look through your charges, before you're paying. So I think it would be good for us to have this so that we could be aware of what the charges are before they're paid.
And it would put the minds of people that pay those bills, it would put their minds to rest because they are concerned about paying those bills with no okay on them. And so, and I think that might keep, and again, when I say this, it's just, it's gotta be said, there could be some bad claims out there that people aren't catching, and corruption or whatever else you can come up with, and Not saying that, not saying that that's happened in the past, I'm just saying that, as treasurer of the church, we have people looking at expenditures and all that kind of good stuff, and not just me, but another person or two is always checking to see what I'm doing, and I'm checking to see what somebody else is doing. I don't make the checks out, I just okay the expenses, and I think that this would be a good thing that commissioners, because we okay the expenses, at least know what we're okaying.
Can I add a couple things?
Yes, I wish you would.
First thing I guess I'll touch on is that, I think just touching on the notion of paying bills before, or the timing of bills. And I can tell you that no matter what, 90% of the bills you're gonna see, even in a claims committee, are gonna already be for things that have already been ordered, things that have already been purchased. I mean, so, we're not pre-vetting what's the activity that's gonna happen. I mean, I think the one thing to keep in mind is that, purchasers are always in compliance with our purchasing policy, so, whether that's me or our elected offices, department heads, we all have to follow purchasing policy. So everything that we're doing is in compliance with that. I mean, I think the budget process plays a big factor there. We obviously can't spend money that isn't budgeted. But other than that, I think there is some modicum of trust, I think, that should be given to department heads and myself to be able to carry out the process of doing that in compliance with the policy. So I mean, I guess that's the only thing I'd recommend is that we do have purchasing policies and an AP policy that kind of governs how this works. Not that, committee couldn't, of course, evaluate those, but I can tell you that we do have a process in place to evaluate how the AP process works. And so it's not Jackie or me just kind of sitting there saying, let's pay some bills. Each department would have an employee at the department that would enter any claims that are there, any invoices that come in. Department heads sign off on those claims as they come through. Jackie takes a look at all of those that come in from every department to kind of our central administration office, and then they flow into me as well. And we're always looking at it, is there anything, if you're over budget, you can't enter anything anyway. We won't let you enter a line item that's over budget. And then we're also looking at, what is the total cost? Is it something that's been pre-approved already by the board? Because you may see some things where it comes in and it's a $50,000 cost, but it's for an item that was approved by the board 7 months ago and just came in now. Well, at that point, it doesn't have to go through the board, it just needs to be approved and paid. So, we're always having those conversations and making sure everything's where it needs to be. We have no issues with circling back to elected offices and department heads if there's a question and say, hey, could you explain this to us? And everybody works together really well to try to coordinate that. So, I don't think there's any issue with having extra oversight if that's what you'd like, but just I think in terms of function, I guess that's something to think about is what is the actual function of the claims committee going to be? Is it just purely for review? Is there a role that the committee, is it taking the place of my review process? Do we need to look at updates to policy? I mean, there's a couple different things to think about I think if I'm not mistaken, the claims committee in the past actually had a function in terms of the claims process. That doesn't exist now, but should it be reinstated in some way? And there's just a number of things to think about as to how you want to go about it or what the purpose is, I think, is really what, I guess, determines that.
Yes, Mrs. Kelsheimer.
I guess back in here, this area, the perception is it almost feels like when you talk about paying bills, it's on the spur of the moment and maybe there's some discussion. So I think having the claims committee would kind of clear that up, because that would eliminate perhaps a lot of discussion when you're trying to pay these bills. I think it's a good audit trail or a what did they say in the accounting world? It's a good control. It's a good oversight control.
I mean, I don't think there's really much in the way of spur of the moment decisions. I mean, I think each department really, handles the process in terms of getting invoices that they are responsible for, vetting those things, submitting them properly. I mean, I think the audit trail is within our software. I mean, we can see who entered an invoice, what the vendor is, who approved it. I'm not opposed to, you know, trying to find ways to, is there ways we can improve our AP processes? We've talked about that several times and looking at trying to move more towards a digital interface. It's a little easier, less paper intensive for everybody, but yeah, I don't think there's a lot of spur of the moment decisions that happen. I mean, it's,
Well, it's just the perception from the audience that when it comes time to approve a bill, there might be some discussion on it, where that discussion probably should have taken place ahead of time, since you do have a process in place.
I guess I'm confused. What discussion would you be referring to?
Well, when you go to pay the bills, sometimes there's a discussion on approving paying a bill.
I mean, I guess I might have a discussion if I had a question like that, and when it finally gets to, I mean, department heads would have normally had a chance to determine, does this bill make sense? Are we saying that this is a bill that we want to authorize and say should go forward? Jackie would look at that too as our central AP person, and me as well. I mean, we might have a discussion if there's a question on the bill, but I don't think it happens very regularly. I mean, I guess for the elected folks in the room, if you submit bills, do we have very many discussions? Occasionally?
Yeah, I think Carol and I wanted to chime in. So I've been with the county for 20 years now, and we always had a claims committee until, what was it? You guys, maybe?
I can tell you,
Yeah,
is that when I became a commissioner, there were 15 of us.
Yeah.
And there was a claims committee. And one of what we were tasked with was making sure that we weren't being charged taxes. That was the main thing. And it was extremely time consuming. Then when we went down to 7 of us, it was like, we're gonna be doing claims on a much more frequent. When there was 15, it really spread it out. But with 7, we were, what meant almost that we would be doing claims like every 2 months. That and it was always 2 people. It was always 2 people. So that was when the administrator said, I'm used to doing this, I did this in my previous job, I will review the claims. And that was probably in 2012, 13, that time period.
Wasn't that long ago?
Yeah, and so we haven't had a claims committee since then. My thinking is this, that I think that if any one commissioner or 2 commissioners want to come in and see the claims, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I review the claims, I like to say I go over them with a fine tooth comb, and I do, and I always, how about it, Jen? Do I have questions? I do, but here's the thing, the difference is that I've been a commissioner for a long time, so I pretty much know what I'm looking at, and I pretty much know, well, this claim doesn't belong here, it belongs over here, or something along those lines, but you all have it. So I don't know so much as maybe a claims committee, but maybe you all can just set aside some time and go over them when you wish. Commissioner Jones.
If this does go before us in the next meeting, I'd like to see it, the claims committee, it's there for, I guess you want it there for a reason, but that reason, would that have to go through the policy committee, so that way that claims committee is not in danger of going beyond its borders?
I guess that's kind of what I was getting at. It's like, and I'm,
Lane,
I don't
yes.
have any problem. I mean, we do claims, you know, basically every other week that isn't payroll.
Yeah.
You know, we would normally have checks processed on Thursday that week. But for me, I guess, and for Jackie to know too, you know, depending on how you function,
Yeah.
like where's the review happen? Is it after we've processed claims? Is it something that is necessitated before checks get cut? I mean, because that would be a policy question.
Yeah,
And you could handle it both ways. It would just be important to know.
Because my question wasn't answered, I guess we're gonna go to, I still have my question
Okay.
that hasn't been answered. I'd like to know what the claims committee's purpose is, and then the purpose or the role of it, before I would vote yes on it. If it's 10 purposes, that's it. They can't do anything outside of those 10 purposes, or 5 purposes, because that could be dangerous.
So just like a clear outline as to
A clear outline as to what its roles and
What is their
responsibilities.
function?
And if they do, they have to do that and nothing
Yeah.
outside of that. That way it's completely transparent as to what they're doing. Because if we ask them to be transparent, so do we.
Yes, absolutely. I think that Hope had her hand up.
Jen did.
Oh, Jennifer?
I just wanted to make mention, I don't have a whole lot to do with claims, but I did want to say, if we do discuss this more, let's not forget about pay nows and what would happen when we do have pay nows. Those do come up. For instance, I know Monica had some for jurors because there were so many, she wanted to keep them out so they didn't get mixed in. So if we could make sure we address that, and then if this is something that we do, we definitely do need to update the one policy for sure, and that would also need to go through policy committee because it is written that commissioners don't, I don't know the exact language, but basically they don't see it till after they're paid, and so that language would need updated in the AP policy as well.
But we could
So
see
just two things to point out.
But we could see it. Hope.
The MCL actually states that the county treasurer pays out monies upon approval of board of commissioners. I've never been comfortable with the way that we've done it. Never. I've kept that note pinned on my desk all these years because we're not in compliance with the Michigan compiled laws. It says I pay out upon approval of the board of commissioners. And secondly, the pay nows. That is a very good point.
Yeah.
We literally our accounts payable is really run every week. It really is. Only 1 week actually follows the claims process.
Sure.
The other week
Sure.
doesn't follow the claims
Sure.
process.
Sure.
Again, I'm not 100% comfortable with that either. And maybe there's reasons why we do it that way, but if we're gonna consistently do them every single week, why don't they consistently all follow the claims process?
We used to.
Those are my two inputs.
So are you saying that you're recommending that we do have the claims?
Oh, 100%.
Because if it's an MCL, I don't look good in orange.
Me neither.
I mean, and honestly, it's me who's not complying because it says the county treasurer pays upon approval of the board of commissioners. So it'd be me in the orange.
The only thing I can tell you is
Carol
that
Carol.
I just wanted to say, like, I didn't realize it was 2012 because there were still claims being reviewed when I first came back to the county as court administrator, because Ziliak was still here then and some others, and I came back in 2013. But I'm not saying Roseanne is wrong, but at that time, because I would get calls sometimes about the claims, so I know at least they were reviewing them. I don't know whether it was before or after.
It was
But-
Louis. It was Louis. When Louis came in, and there were 7 of us, he said, "I'll do the claims. I do
But
it."
a couple of things I wanted to say, the MCL that she's
What?
referring to, when the Board of Commissioners passes a line item budget, if the expenditure is something that's specifically approved in that line item budget, then there wouldn't have to be separate approval because it's already been approved by way of the budget. So I know many counties look to that as the approval part of it. But, I think that in terms of the way it's been done, where it gets looked at after the fact, there's really no purpose in that, because if the money if it wasn't appropriate, there's really nothing the commissioners can do after it's been done to undo it, because the checks have already been put in the mail. So I think that that's what needs to be looked at in terms of, there's different categories of those expenditures. For example, if we have a contract where we helped pay for medication-assisted treatment in the jail, we signed a contract and we have to pay Wayne State a certain amount of money. Those are not something that the commissioners can do anything about once they approved our grant, that actually the grant paid for that.
Yeah.
So even if a commissioner thought, well, we don't think they should be spending that much money, well, the grant's the one that told us to spend it, and when the check comes in, I need to make sure it gets paid on time because we have a contract that says we have to pay them on time. So I guess I'm just saying, like, I support what's being said kind of by a lot of people, but I think the claims to have it delineated, because there are different categories of expenditures, I would say.
And millages are like that too.
And for example, if I go and stay in a hotel in Lansing and our grant reimburses us 100% for that, I shouldn't have to wait for a commissioner to say, yes, she can have a reimbursement check. Because, I can, that's fine, but I'm just saying it's a specified category, the grant's paying for it 100%, so there really is no malfeasance possible there, because I have to supply the documentation the state requires.
Well, and I think this is where Hope has asked for us to review our process for quite some time. I think it would be a good thing to sit down and have a discussion on all of these items, not just the claims committee, on how we process everything would be a good idea. just my suggestion.
And that could be the role of the claims committee also, to do that right there. That way they have a greater understanding of the whole process.
And also we have the great technology now to do some of this, because now in BSNA, we
Yeah,
can
we have-
attach those, the receipts and vouchers and stuff, but not everybody's even using it.
And include the software, and that's a good time to make changes to everything and get a good system in place for everyone.
And I think that's not a bad idea, and I think we can
You
look
wanna
at
say
that.
something too?
It's a little different, I mean, but I would say that like in terms of the software and having a format for how we do it, I mean, that already exists. It's just not every department is following it, but.
Commissioner Barrio
Yeah.
would like to say something.
So, I mean, I appreciate this topic being discussed because there's a lot of great points that are being made right now. Specifically that, yeah, I mean, given our last packet of our last
With the
business
claims.
meeting, March 2nd, 2023, we've got 10 pages here of claims. This is not a friendly version. I'm a data analyst by day. This is not a friendly version to be able to review this information and be able to pick out outliers that are really probably something that we should review. That being said, looking at the process as with, you know, because at this point this has already been paid. So I'm also a former system administrator for for Health Network, and we had a process in place when things were getting paid. There was an approval process. Not everything needed to be reviewed, but certain items would need to be reviewed if they hit a certain dollar figure or if they went into a certain bucket. And those are things that were just kind of put in place so that it didn't fall on one individual to say, oh, well, we paid it because of this or that. There was at least a process in place where certain individuals would be asked to review that item and then pay it. Now, if this is something that we need to look at, a higher overview as to how our current software operates and if there's a function in that software that allows us to do that, or if there's something that just needs to be reworked so that we can have a better oversight. I'm sure that we do have purchasing policies in place and they seem to be working real well. I'm not questioning that at all. But just looking at this information, this is hard for me to determine, is there something here that I should be reviewing in further detail?
Commissioner Lee?
So my opinion is it's not an offensive thing to have a claims committee. It's not meant to be,
No.
don't take it that way. But we have volunteers already that are willing to do it. It's not like we're gonna be forcing any commissioners to take this on as it is. So my thoughts would be it's for the next policy committee meeting that we put on a claims committee development. We develop a claims committee at the next policy committee meeting.
To piggyback off that, I just want to say that whatever we do, I'd like to find a way to streamline something and not find a way to slow something down. If we're making progress, great, but if we're putting roadblocks in the way, then.
Yeah, we got enough bureaucracy.
And thanks everybody, because this was a great discussion.
And this
great
is why we have the
debate.
cow.
Yeah, that's the cow, that's right, that's right. Anyone else want to chime in on the claims?
Just one parting thought.
Okay.
I think where you fall in the process really matters too. If you are
Yes.
saying that everything has to be vetted in advance, it creates a lot of lag time in the process to make sure vendors get paid on time,
Yeah,
things like that. I mean,
That's a key.
it's just something to
They have
think
to be
about
paid
in
on
terms
time.
of how you approach it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's part of why using the purchasing policies and the budget is kind of the basis for a lot of these decisions comes into play, because if you wait until it gets approved at a board meeting and it's something that got bought 3 weeks ago, I mean, you're gonna be running into late fees.
Carol?
And I just want to support that. I think it sounds good the way you're going to proceed, and just to make sure that we have it clearly delineated what can happen, because with a lot of our grants, the people that get paid under them, we have to spend the money at a certain time period. And when those people are expecting direct deposit on a certain date, they then would go over me when I was court administrator and start harassing Jen and Matt and all these other people. I shouldn't say harassing. But finding where that
That's
spot
okay.
is critical, because if you guys have to, for example, check a box so that they can release the deposits could be late, and it creates a lot of chaos for a lot of people. So I think the oversight is really a great idea, but knowing where it occurs so that we can then also tell our vendors, like, because we're pretty strict in the courts, and we say, if you don't have it on Thursday, you're not getting paid a week from Friday. So don't whine about it. But then if we know, no, it's gonna now be a 3-week long process or whatever, we have to know, because we're begging attorneys and people right now to take our cases, and when they're only getting paid a small amount compared to what they could get in private practice, we don't want suddenly their payments to be delayed, I guess is what we're saying.
Okay, good,
I'd
thank
like
you.
to also just mention that while I probably don't understand the full implications of what we're discussing here, what could happen, I do appreciate what you're bringing up because even in my past experience, even the approval process that we had in place, if somebody was out of that, in that process was out, then something does get delayed and vendors do get upset and people need to get paid. So just want to make sure that, just as you said, that we do fall in the right place and we're doing this for the right reasons, but most importantly, that we just make sure that we're quick about paying our bills and not dragging our feet.
Good point. Anybody else before we move on? Okay, so we are going to move on to E, which is a resolution approving participation in settlements and approval of MSSA for the April 13th regular meeting. And this has to do with the opioid settlement and...
Yeah, so I can give a brief overview. So for our newer commissioners, you probably wouldn't have had much experience with this, but it's been ongoing now for, I think it's almost 6 years in terms of
Yes, it has.
a lawsuit regarding kind of the opioids. And Cass County signed on with a number of other governmental entities kind of in the lawsuits, class action suits against distributors and other participants that felt that they had not behaved correctly and that they were doing in terms of the opioid epidemic. I think it wasn't last December, I think it was December of 21. We went through this process with Janssen & Janssen and there was a distributor settlement agreement. That resulted in a settlement of $1.8 million over the next 18 years. I think it was Janssen & Janssen. One of the groups kind of accelerated their payment, which is why we had $247,000 this year. It would have normally been about $50,000 less. But now they're coming back to it with respect to these organizations. I think it was Teva. I don't know how you say that. If it's Allergan or the name. Walmart, CVS, that would be kind of the next round of entities that are looking to settle. Our representative, Attorney Tony Bear, and their law firm, as well as the kind of the collection of law firms representing this, has recommended, just like as in the past, that the county proceed in this settlement. The resolution would authorize that. I know this is a lot of content to read.
It is.
So it would have been very interesting if this was a regular meeting. Fortunately, it's not. But to help, there's a memo there that kind of goes into the recommendation from them as to why they would proceed with this and giving some advice there. And then Attorney Coney Bear had also mentioned that seeing as we have some new commissioners who may not be as familiar, he'd be happy to join us at the next meeting to kind of give an update and kind of bring everybody up to speed on where we're at and talk about the proposed settlement as well.
Sounds good.
And the one time that Attorney Coney did, well, several times he's joined us, it's been online. It's been by Zoom or Teams or
I would assume
whatever.
it'd probably be similar this time.
Yeah, which makes it a little bit easier. And then we don't have to pay travel either.
Do we have to pay him to give that explanation?
Yes, sir, we do.
Wow. Money everywhere.
Yeah.
How much is that gonna cost?
Well, whatever it is that he charges per hour, or
Well,
whatever
I can,
research.
if this helps, I mean, I can tell you that, I think it's at the very last page of this, but, looking at and the MSSA stands for, it's the Michigan State Subdivision Agreement. The share that the county would expect to receive, and of course it varies a little bit, based on which entity and the timing. You know, some of them are 13 years, some of it's 7, some of it's 1 to 6, but it's a total of $734,791 the county would receive in settlement proceeds over a 13-year time span. So I think if we have a little bit of money for the attorney, it's probably worth it to make sure we get it right.
Yes. Judge Beeler?
I was just gonna say, I mean, that's fine if you wanna pay him to do it, but I'm sure the summary that he provided
Yeah.
explains it. If we've known all along, and I say
Yeah.
we, because originally we were
Yeah.
doing like weekly phone conferences with the original attorneys, like
Yeah.
6 or 7 years ago, that the goal was to get settlement, because if you had to litigate it, it would end up costing a lot of attorney fees, even though it's gonna cost attorney fees getting the settlement, so, I would think it would be highly unlikely, I guess, that we would not accept the settlement, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So that's up to you, whether you wanna
I
pay
would
for
think
him
so,
to tell
too.
you that or not.
It's $56,000
But you could check with
a year.
other lawyers
Yeah,
who
over
probably tell you the
13
same thing, that trying things costs a lot of money, so.
Yeah, I mean, and these are largely the exact same as we had back with the last time for the Janssen and Janssen and distributor settlements, but it's up to the board.
So if that's a $735,000, just to round it off, over a 13-year period, that's approximately $57,000 a year that we would get. So hopefully we can put a cap on how much we, yes, $56,000 is what I want from you. No!
Yeah, you gotta take out their fees.
And take out their fees out of that. Yeah.
Anyone else
Good
want
point,
to?
Sam.
Should we move this to?
Yes,
I'm good with this, but I don't need the explanation from the lawyer.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's fine, he is available,
Okay.
that's fine too.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm sure he'd like to, but I'm with RJ, and I don't need to hear from him. We can
He
put that money
actually said
somewhere
he didn't
else.
mind not doing it because he'd already.
Ask him if he'd mind doing it pro bono.
I don't know he'd take us up on that one.
Okay, moving along, we have F, which is the Security Awareness Training and Testing Policy. I mean, we
Yes.
received copies of that, and,
So I can talk about this too. So
Okay.
primarily what we're looking at here is gonna be phishing tests.
yeah,
So as everybody knows, it's becoming increasingly a problem for local governments, school districts, I mean, even private enterprise. I mean, it's something that's very, top of mind for everyone in this space is that, your network systems are potentially vulnerable. Hackers are constantly trying to get in there and, lock down your information essentially and say, okay, yeah, we'll open it back up for $3 million or $10 million or whatever. So one of the things that we do as part of this process is kind of regular testing. So we'll send out an email that kind of will look like it's something, and just do people click the links, things like that. We've done a few different, systems over the years. We're planning to implement a new system. It's a company we've worked with called KnowBe4. They can set up kind of regular training. And the idea behind this is to kind of, I guess, codify in some way what we're looking to do. So phishing training is a part of that. It's a big component of this. One of the things that I guess I want to highlight on is that there are, Appendix A would list a schedule of penalties. But what we want to reiterate is that this is not meant to be punitive in
no.
nature. It's not something where it's going to end up in somebody's employee file or anything like that. What we're talking about here is that, somebody clicked an email, you get put into, kind of a quick training that says, hey, here's the things you should look for next time. Here's some things that might have given that email away, look at the email address or the signature, or it said, Cass County IT Administration, is that actually an address that exists? Those sorts of things. If somebody gets, I think, 3 consecutive tests in a row after that training and goes, well, they kind of revert back down. If it continues, then somebody would still have issues with clicking links. I think once it gets to the 4th time, there'd be kind of a face-to-face meeting with the elected official or immediate supervisor to say, hey, what can we do to try to help, mitigate this? Let's plan on, trying to enhance training in some way. And then if there's a 5th time, we would have a meeting with the IT director involved as well and say, okay, let's personalize some training. How can we try to find a program where we're going to be able to really help somebody understand what these dangers could be? And so, again, it's not meant to be something that's, a personnel issue in that regard. We're not putting disciplinary procedures in place. It's more about, how do we deal with this, from within the system in terms of dealing with failure penalties. I mean, we keep talking about this, I think, in all of our meetings, but we would love to get to a point where everybody passes. I think Jody and a few of us have joked that once we get to actually not really a joke at all, once we get to a point where no clicks, we'll have a big pizza party or something, to celebrate. And the other thing I guess I'll touch on real quick is that we do have the ability with KnowBe4 to kind of have regular trainings on a number of topics. So it's not just phishing emails, it could be how to be safe with USB drives and things like that. And we'll have kind of a regular training system where once a month you'll get videos to watch. It might be 3 minutes long, but it's not something that will take 20 minutes to get through, and you don't have like a date, you've got time to get it done, there's reminders that are built in, so it's very employee friendly.
I asked Jody, we just experienced a phishing attack.
We did.
A couple of days ago,
Yeah.
so I emailed Jody and asked her, I said, thank you, Jody, how many email attempts have we averaged per day or per week, or however they track it, because I don't know. And she replied, there's too many to count. We have thousands of emails daily, thousands that get blocked daily
That
from
get
just
blocked.
100 and some employees we have here. So I recommend we move this forward, and I would like to recognize Jody and her whole IT department, because
Exactly.
she is a very, 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 did I say very? Important part of our security, next to the sheriff and the prosecutor and the judge and all that.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from the policy committee too, like, we all approved this.
Yes.
It's pretty extensive.
Yeah.
It's easy to do.
If Jody was here, I'd give her a round of applause, but I'll thank her and
Yeah.
when
can
we
all
see
thank
her.
her when we see
Yeah.
her. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so, do you need me to reiterate what we're moving on to April 13th?
No. You do?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, we're gonna move the MEDC Marine Patrol grant, the jail lift station pump number 2, the resolutions of recognition, animal control, 911 telecommunicators, and National Crime Victims' Rights Weeks. We're gonna move on. We're going to take the discussion of the Claims Committee to the Policy Committee. And we are going to move on the resolution approving participation in the opioid settlement, and also the awareness training and testing policy. Any questions?
Everything.
Okay, now, we have board member comments and announcements. Does anyone have any board member? Joyce, got any board member comments? No? Okay. Jim?
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Appreciate this
Mary,
time
any
we
board
have.
member comment? No?
Nope.
Mr. Jones? Sam?
Not really, not that I can think of.
Commissioner Lee?
No.
Okay, I have, first of all, I want to say congratulations to Jennifer Renfro.
Whoa.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, absolutely, award of financial reporting achievement.
What did she say?
She has recognition for award of financial reporting achievement, as well as a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. From Christopher P. Morrow, Executive
Excellent.
Director, CEO.
GFOA.
See, okay. And then my other comment is that I'll talk about this again, but on April 26th, at the Road Commission, from 3 to 6 p.m., we will have our hazardous waste, used electronics, and used passenger car tires and pickup truck tires. We will have those pickups, and it will be from 3 to 6 p.m., and we can always use, we'll take any help we can get. So,
I'll be there.
me too. Okay, well, now I would entertain
Motion to adjourn.
a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Now, where's the, he said that meeting's gonna go for 3 hours. but I think we did.